Hey everyone, I'm Dan from JazzComposersPresent.com, an online space where composers, musicians, and listeners come together to celebrate the music we love. I'm joined today by Pete McGuinness, Grammy-nominated composer, arranger, and award-winning jazz vocalist. Pete was a longtime New York City-based trombonist and is professor of jazz studies and arranging at William Paterson University. Pete is here to show us how to compose atonal music that grooves.
Thanks, Dan, and welcome all you folks out there. Particularly folks who have been curious about writing chromatic music possibly using 12-tone technique or loosely using 12-tone technique. I wrote a fairly adventurous piece, for me at least, for my new record, for my jazz orchestra, which is coming out in the month of May. It's called Mixed Bag. It's on the Summit record label. On this piece of music I wrote, I made some decisions before I talked about making actual choices for rhythms or melodies or anything. And this is where chromaticism comes in. I wanted to write a piece of music that was funky, that was in kind of a drum-based jam band style, had a little feeling of edge to it. I made that decision first before I wrote any music or came up with any harmony or anything like that. So once I made that decision, I said, well, what can service me? What tools of music can service me to give me that emotion, that edgy feeling and that aggressive feeling? And I thought about chromaticism. And if I'm going to use chromaticism, I also wanted to go a step further and use serial and 12-tone techniques in composing the bass line of the piece and melodic lines that would go layer on top of this bass line. So the first thing I came up with, again, we're talking about drum bass music, jam band grooves. I wanted to get that bass line right. So I thought to myself, what could inspire me? And I thought of Thelonious Monk's song, Evidence, for a couple of reasons. And if we can put that first slide up, Dan. Evidence, first of all, has a couple things going for it that inspired me. First of all, there's harmonic ambiguity. If you look at the collection of notes of the melody portion, not a bass line, but the melody itself of Evidence, you get these pitches. If I stop right there, and that G flat actually is an F sharp, you have 7 notes in a row stopping on the B flat that are unrepeated. And if the melody continues, it gets more and more around the E flat tonality, which is what the key is in. But the first 7 notes are not repeated. They don't really spell out any kind of harmonic world. It's very much like writing 12-tone lines. So that was something I found appealing about this song, the harmonic ambiguity. Then next was the rhythmic quality, the punches, the upbeats, the isolated surprise notes, and then certain events that would counter that, like in the 4th bar of the tune, in the 6th bar of the tune, and in the 8th bar of the tune, the places I circled. So the rhythms are at one bop, 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 bop here, things like that. So the harmonic ambiguity, the rhythmic feeling, inspired me to write the bass line, and my bass line is highly chromatic. It's kind of based on a C pedal, but it's 11 of 12 notes in a row. Then I repeat that line in a inversion of the intervals, not a retrograde, but the intervals are inverted. So there's a serial technique to that as well. So some of this inspiration from Evidence, some of the inspiration from 12-tone technique and chromatic line construction for my bass line was what I was thinking about when I created this. So let's play the first video. This is the bass line from my piece called Down the Rabbit Hole. That was a lot of fun to write. And I think it was fun for the bass player too. I hope so, at least. The next thing I did with this composition, staying in this chromatic vocabulary and harmonic world, was to create melodic lines over the top. Now, one of the inspirations I got, because I wanted my melodic lines, the unison lines in the saxophones or the trumpets or whoever above the bass line, I did want to have a quote unquote jazz feeling to it, whatever that means. That's such a tricky word to use now, but maybe smooth lines with syncopations, bebop, post-bop feeling elements to that, even though it's highly chromatic music. I drew some inspiration for this idea from a composition by Bill Evans called 12-Tone Tune 2. It's a 12-tone composition, and if we can show that slide quickly. This is the composition. The tone row is on the top, which Bill would always play, just sort of straight verbatim, and then he would launch into the tune. But if you look at the contours of the tune, there's been free octave displacement, so Bill can get the collection of intervals he wants, even though he's still using the 12-tone row. So what would be highly wide intervals, if he does some octave displacement, he gets a much smoother, more jazz, whatever that means, bebop-oriented line contour. Even if I just sing the rhythms and the contour of the line, it feels like jazz, even though it's 12-tone lines. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the first 4 bars. That sounds very jazzy. Again, that's a hard word to use these days. It's such a big word and big world. So Bill was able to, through octave displacement, take his 12-tone line, create the interval contours he wanted, and the rhythmic vocabulary he used. It's still 12-tone music, but it has a very more of a traditional jazz feeling. I tried the same thing with 12-tone rows or loose chromatic principles, non-repeating pitches in a row, and not identifying specific key areas in my own line writing for Down the Rabbit Hole. So let's hear some of that in the next video. So that's it. For those of you that are a little intimidated by 12-tone technique or chromaticism, remember there's other things you can be inspired by, as well as just the science of 12-tone writing or chromaticism techniques in general. It can be part of a larger continuum of the past, the present, and the future. So thanks, Dan.
Thanks for watching today's mini lesson. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos down below. To watch our full-length events and participate in live Q&As with our presenting artists, head to jazzcomposerspresent.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.